Now, as we saw this week, there were Australian attempts to cut and paste the Black Lives Matter movement of the United States and say that it all matters here. Some of the vitriol came with it too. Remember this sign held up so effortlessly, reported on the media with no great fanfare? This was in Sydney in 2020. A good cop's a dead cop. You also know that despite the fact that in New South Wales you can be fined if you have more than 5 people over to your house, if 500 get together, there's no COVID issue whatsoever, apparently. Well, today we heard from the New South Wales Premier. Did she have anything to say about that sign? Not that we could see. And how does she feel about a state where they have strict limits on the number of people who are allowed to be inside a McDonald's at any one time versus the number of people who are allowed to march up the middle of the main street of Sydney holding signs among which saying a good cop is a dead cop? How does she feel about that when she's been so cautious about the virus?
Protesting is an inherent right in our democracy, and I ask anybody who's considering to do that to do it peacefully and to maintain a social distance from other people. But I never want us to be in a situation where we take away people's democratic right to do that, and I'm sure the Deputy Commissioner would have the same view. So long as it's done peacefully and respectfully, and you respect your distance from others as well as other people's, people have that right to protest.
So why wasn't the failure to do so policed? Is the whole point that because you won't kick up a fuss, because you won't kick in your neighbour's windows, because you don't have 500 people gathering in a park and you'll all go collectively crazy, that you are the one who has to be subject to the law? But many of the toddlers who we know would go completely out of control if they were handed a fine at those protests, well, clearly there's a double standard here. And also, when we want to talk about democratic rights, I'm pretty sure that in this country we consider our right the ability to gather at 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning or at any time we wish on Anzac Day to be able to commemorate the members of our own family or the complete strangers that obviously we have never known who have served this country. Yet Australians decided, despite how passionate they were, wanting to thank their own family members or ones they had never met, we didn't get up and stand side by side on Anzac Day. We socially distanced and did it in our driveway. Because if we had turned up at the local cenotaph, we would have been fined. These people, their democratic right to pretend that Australia is just as bad as the United States and that a good cop is a dead cop, they get no fine whatsoever. There'll be a bigger protest that'll happen in Sydney this weekend and an even bigger one that'll be taking place in Melbourne. And Daniel Andrews, who somehow thinks it's all about him. Remember, you were supposed to be okay with not visiting your mother for Mother's Day because he wasn't visiting his mother for Mother's Day. So apparently, do as Dan does and everything will be fine. Here's what he said about this protest, which will be way bigger and way less socially distanced.
I'm not going to the protest. I would suggest to other people they shouldn't go to the protest either. I understand the depth of feeling on this issue. Enough people have been hurt. Let's not do anything on the weekend that compromises safety. Let's not do anything on the weekend that potentially spreads the virus.
So you'll be fining people, right? No. We spoke to Victoria Police yesterday, and as I showed you on this program last night, they say because they don't want to agitate the crowds, they won't be handing out COVID-19 fines. So the Premier gets to have it both ways. He gets to say, look, I understand the passion for your feelings, but you probably shouldn't do it because you won't be social distancing. But we're not going to be handing out any fines because we're too busy counting the number of people who are going to be in and out of wine bars in the alleyways of Melbourne. One rule for them, one rule for the rest of us. If you feel like you're being punished for doing the right thing while others just can do what the heck they want because the cause is righteous, you'd be 100% correct. And sadly, the premiers who have way too much power over your free movement and our free movement for our own good when it came to the virus, they don't get it either. These people took so much already from us. They took away Mother's Day, they took away Anzac Day, but apparently the right to pretend that the Black Lives Matter movement is as potent in Australia as it is in the United States and a good cop's a dead cop, fine. Jog on.